In the years of developing the companies I developed, I mean, there were times where I was working 1 o'clock in the morning. I'd wake up, I couldn't sleep, but I was okay with it. Like that did not bother me whatsoever because it was right. It's yours. It's like I'm putting in time and the effort, and it's mine. And it was almost like a burning desire. And there is a difference. And again, I'm not taking anything away from the corporate world or even being an entrepreneur within an organization, right? I love organizations who can allow people to be almost that entrepreneur versus just an employee and, have the ability to make mistakes, make decisions, have successes. I mean, it all comes with it.
And so my core message in my TED Talk, and this was something that was so personal, it was so deeply personal, this talk and the journey that I shared. Because when I got the opportunity to do it, a lot of people talk about their business and stuff. And I thought, I want to make more of an impact than just talking about business. I really want to go deep with this and talk about that impacts women in a way that we don't really talk about. It's kind of taboo. And that's our body image and how we think about ourselves. And even supermodels, people who you look at and you think, oh my God, they're so beautiful and they're so fit and they have had body image issues. We all have some level of body image issue. And so I wanted to address the body image issue and to talk about the power of self-love to overcome those issues.
Unfinished Business Podcast Show with your host, David Slimey.
Welcome back to Unfinished Business, everybody. Today, we want to really dive into branding. There's a few things we're going to dive into, but I want to welcome our guest today, Alicia Couri. She actually does a number of different things, but I really am excited to dive into branding, her ideas, business leadership, but more importantly, standing out today is more challenging than ever. In the digital space, mastering the art of cutting through the noise is just that. It's really an art. And she's the founder of Audacious Concepts. And realistically, we're going to talk today about branding, business impact. We're going to talk about leadership, influence, and you want to talk about credibility here. I mean, she is an Amazon bestseller 7 times. She's a podcast host. She also has been on TEDx, TED Talks, powerful transformation talk. She's recently have done some great stuff on there, and you're going to get a lot out of our conversation today, and really pumped to have her here today. So Alicia, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, David. I know it's been a journey for us to get here, but we're here.
It has. Yeah. We've been trying to really tie this thing together for a little while here, and, having families and priorities and business partnerships. I mean, it sometimes does bounce in the way, but I'm glad we were able to get this together and excited to have you here today. But let's jump in here. You've built an incredible platform and presence. What has inspired you really to start that journey in branding and business development?
So thank you for that. The first thing back in 2012. So I started a company. It was called AC Beauty back in 2005. I had a company doing on-site hair and makeup, and we would go to our clients to do like weddings, red carpet events, special occasions. And at some point I wanted to expand that and thought I would do a branding. I would go take a course on branding, or at least find somebody who can brand my business stronger.
Okay.
Not me, my business. I was like,
right.
I was always behind the scenes. And that's what I kind of convinced myself, that I can't be in the forefront. I have to be behind the scenes. So I was pushing the business in front of me. So
you did. Wow. Okay.
It wasn't about
All
me,
right.
it was about AC Beauty.
Yeah.
And I landed in a personal branding course and started that process. And I was petrified of the things they were telling me to do. It's like, I'm not going to speak on stage. What are you talking about? I'm not going to do that. No, I just need more clients. You don't understand. I just need more people to know about AC Beauty so I can have more clients. Well, at the end of the 2 years with my personal branding coach, I didn't just all of a sudden drop AC Beauty.
Yeah, it was transition.
Transitioned out of AC Beauty. I got certified in different actually brain science tools, predictive index and Kolbe, Kolbe, if nobody's familiar with that, and started really understanding how powerful a personal brand is, not just for business owners, but for business leaders and people in organizations as well. And that's kind of where I turned my focus to. Let me help you take what I learned as someone who was petrified of building a brand for myself, and someone who was like, oh no, don't put me on camera.
Yeah, why is it that people are so, I would say, I don't want to be in the spotlight, and listen, I had a problem with it as well when I was early in my career, just speaking in front of people. I remember the first time I spoke in front of like a group of 12 people, I was like, sweat was running down my neck. I was getting choked up. Yeah.
Like your mouth is like cotton and it's like,
totally.
Yeah.
So if you could give anybody advice who wants to listen, sometimes they don't want to, but they need to, or there's a desire to, but there's that fear. Yeah. What are one or two things that you would recommend? And actually, I'm going to ask you to recommend two, but I want to identify one. You went to a course, and there's such great stuff out there, right? Yeah. Like at our fingertips. Yes. I want to highlight that, but anything outside of that?
Outside of mentorship and coaching and that kind of thing.
Yes.
Yeah. So we all have resistances. We all have resistances, and it's about becoming aware of those resistances. So if you know that you have to do something, but you are resisting it, you need to dig into why. Why are you resisting this? And I knew for me, I can talk for me, and I know this probably it applies to a lot of different people. It was a fear of judgment. It was that fear of other people judging me, people that I knew that were going to have something to say about it, and people that I didn't know yet that were going to have something to say about it. And I had that fear of judgment. And so that held me back from stepping forward.
How did you break that? How did you break that where you're like, I just don't give a shit, or I don't care? Like, because that's a hard one.
It is a hard one.
I still,
because
I mean,
we have
I
primal
don't.
brain. We have that primal brain that way back. If we were kicked out of the tribe, we would starve. We would die. Right. And so we still have that primal energy inside of us that if we're not accepted, we're going to die. Not literally anymore, but we still feel like, we'll be pushed out of favor and we'll be alone, and that scares people.
Yeah. I was going to say, I still think people, right. They think like it's going to like end or something, but realistically what it does, and this keeps coming up in conversations, it helps you grow. Yeah. It actually,
and when you realize
become
people
a
really
stronger
don't care
being.
that much about you, you think they do. They're not hanging on your every word.
They don't care. They don't. Not as much as you do. Right? I mean, yeah. That's so good. That's so good. Great. Love that. Yeah, and I want to get into Kolbe too, right? I really want to dig into that, but a few more things. Listen, you were on TEDx, and that's one of my goals eventually, to be on TEDx. Okay. It made some waves. So what was your core message? And for those, obviously I've listened, but I want you to let our listeners know what the core message was and the impact that you hope it continues to have as you go along.
So thank you for that. So in 2020, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And so facing the possibility of losing one or both, I started really thinking about what that journey was like throughout my life with them. And so my core message in my TED Talk, and this was something that was so personal, it was so deeply personal, this talk and the journey that I shared. Because when I got the opportunity to do it, a lot of people talk about their business and stuff. And I thought, I want to make more of an impact than just talking about business. I really want to go deep with this and talk about something that impacts women in a way that we don't really talk about. It's kind of taboo. And that's our body image and how we think about ourselves. And even supermodels, people who you look at and you think, oh my God, they're so beautiful and they're so fit and they have had body image issues. We all have some level of body image issue. And so I wanted to address the body image issue and to talk about the power of self-love to overcome those issues. So that's what my talk was. And it was told through the perspective of me from childhood to womanhood and my experience with my changing body, especially around my breasts. And then facing losing them, what were the decisions that I made to save them? So that's kind of the story that I told during that opportunity.
Yeah, that's good.
On that stage.
Check it out because it's so courageous. It was a really
the day
good.
Before I was like, am I really going to talk about my breasts on TEDx? Am I really going to do this?
But you're right. It's like people don't want to talk about it, and I think it's actually what you've done is giving people more confidence and just opening up about that, and women who've gone through it. And I commend you. I think it's great.
Thank you.
Yeah. So listen, before launching your company, because I always love to talk about the transition of being an entrepreneur. Were there some moments in your career that kind of shaped that vision for you in launching it and saying, I'm going for it?
Yeah. Well, the fact that I'm unemployable because
Why you say that?
I just have a real challenge with people telling me what to do. I've always
that's
childhood.
That's a challenge in the corporate world.
Yeah, it's a challenge to tell me what to do. And finding out my Kolbe actually made sense of why that was. But in all seriousness, I always had this drive for impacting people in different ways. And and sitting behind a desk was never appealing to me.
Yeah.
In fact, one of my first real jobs was as a flight attendant because I got to explore the world and do things differently. And that was really my only real job.
Yeah.
I had a couple other small things, but that was the biggest job I ever had. And then I started doing stuff on my own.
It's so great. It's so great. I mean, you just to take that leap, because there may be some listeners out there right now who have thought about it or thinking about it or are in it right now. And that's why we do this show, is to hear from entrepreneurs like yourself who just take that leap and listen, it's never going to be perfect. Okay.
And let me tell you something really important about that.
Please.
And this is what I teach my children too, is when you learn or develop the ability to sell something that you create, tangible or intangible, that brings a level of confidence to you. I think everybody, whether you have a 9-to-5 or not, you need to learn the skill. It's a skill. You need to learn the skill of selling something that is yours, that belongs to you, because then you'll always have something. If you get fired tomorrow, if you get fired today, you'll have something, you have a skill that you've built that you can take and develop and grow and become an entrepreneur, even if you never wanted to be. You have that, and nobody can take that away from you.
Yeah, I think that's such a great point. And the other thing I'll add to that is, in the years of developing the companies I developed, I mean, there were times where I was working 1:00 in the morning. I'd wake up, I couldn't sleep, but I was okay with it. Like that did not bother me whatsoever because it was it's yours. It's like I'm putting in time and the effort, and it's mine. And it was almost like a burning desire. And there is a difference. And again, I'm not taking anything away from the corporate world or even being an entrepreneur within an organization, right? I love organizations who can allow people to be almost that entrepreneur versus just an employee and, have the ability to make mistakes, make decisions, have successes. I mean, it all comes with it. But you got to be aligned with the right organization for that. So no, I think it's a great point. I'm writing a book right now. Okay. You've done this 7 times. You've written
actually
7.
It's more than 7 times, but I've written 2 complete books myself, and I've written chapters in multiple. I think I've written chapters in over 10 different books. But I've written 2 books of my own. Yeah.
Yeah. It was funny because we're planning on having a guest on who really helps people cultivate writing books. But what's one of the biggest, more powerful lessons you learned in writing, in that writing journey?
Listen, writing your own book is hard.
It's hard.
It is a challenge, and I would suggest if anybody's doing it, unless you are a skilled writer yourself, you need help. You need help with this. So I'm looking forward to that show. But also getting over yourself from the perspective of who is this going to help? It's no longer about you. It's no longer about, it's just like when I was on the TEDx stage, it wasn't about me and my story. I was able to go that deep and open up because I looked at it. How is this journey helping someone else, and telling it with that in mind versus it being about me? Because if it was about me, if it was ego driven and it was about me, then I would be so hung up about what was in there and would people like it and who, rather than will they benefit from it, it'll be, will they like it? Will they like me? Will they accept me? And so when you're writing a book, it's really about what is the message that I'm sharing that I think people need to know. And what are the stories that I can share that bring light or help people understand how to overcome these things. So I'd say that's the biggest advice or lesson, I would say, in writing your own book.
Yeah, I think the ability to identify that you can serve people to help them. Once and this was just my transition. Once I identified that, because I'm going through the hustle and bustle so many years of growing organizations and working inside out versus working outside in. And, after time, it's like you wake up and you go, okay, when you're outside in, you go, wow, I've gone through a journey here, and I'm going to put something together that's going to serve the people who read this. And that was my mind. That was actually the motivation of doing it. So that's really good. I feel like I'm in a good place of where I'm at with it, but that just confirmed it. So thank you. That's really good.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk a little bit about branding, business impact. Many businesses struggle with this, right? To stand out in these saturated type markets.
You almost feel like I had to start 20 years ago for anybody to know who I am, right?
Right.
Oh my gosh.
How do you cut through the noise effectively? How do you do it?
And it is challenge. It's a big challenge. And cutting through the noise is about authenticity. It's about really understanding self, because you're not trying to be like someone else or do things like someone else. It's really about coming to understand that your message and how you share your message and what you have to share is vital and important. And so it's getting out there and putting yourself out there and sharing it, again, from that, and authenticity is such a overused word. It's so overused, but it's really your core message when you can articulate that. So I'm all about confidence. I'm all about helping people build and expand their confidence, whether it's in the workplace, within their teams, or personally within themselves. Audacious confidence is what I'm helping you to develop. And so that's the thing that I've landed on, because I struggled so much with my own confidence. And once I kind of broke the code on that for me and recognized how I could step out of that, that became a burning desire for me to share with other people. And so you have to recognize what is that thing for you, and then go out there and share it. There are thousands of people sharing about confidence. But when I have my audacious confidence, that's a little bit different, and people remember me. In fact, I was sharing someone about our podcast, which is Leading with Audacious Confidence, and he went on iTunes and he started typing it in, leading with, and a bunch of things. And as soon as he started typing audacious, AUD, everything disappeared, and that was the only thing there. And he's like, oh, wow. So like everything just disappeared, and that was the only podcast with those words. But when he typed leading with, they had hundreds of podcasts with that word leading. So if you can find a phrase or a word that becomes yours, trademark that, then that cuts through the noise of when you tell someone this is what I do and they search it up, then you are the only one, that's your keyword. And that's one way to stand out, is when you have those kind of trademarked key phrases or keywords that when people search for, it'll come up.
Yeah. And you sort of answered the question, but I want to ask it anyway. But what are some of the common brand mistakes companies make, or even leaders for that matter? When taking this approach, and just because some people just want to jump in and other people want to take their time. But what are some of the common mistakes people make?
And I'll go back to not knowing
or businesses.
Self. Yeah, yes. Not knowing self, and also just trying to copycat. They had success over there doing this, so we're going to copy exactly what they did, without really understanding what is your secret. What is your secret sauce? You can take elements. There's nothing new under the sun, right? They say there's nothing new under the sun. But taking elements of things that inspire you or that you connect with, and then weaving in your own secret sauce, your own what it is that you do, then that becomes your brand, and it's not a copycat. So the biggest mistake is trying to copycat someone else. And I see that out there a lot.
Okay. Great advice. That is great advice. And listen, there's so many there's all these multimedia channels right now. And I mean, you've created a pretty powerful brand and a presence through TV, obviously the TEDx, the podcast, the digital platforms. What's the secret to kind of weaving in and out of those multiple channels successfully?
I'll let you know when I figure it out. I'm still working on that. Listen,
to be continued on the next show.
Continued. I'm just out there. I'm just out there. So on YouTube, you pick the ones that you know that you can really have an impact on. So YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook, and TikTok. So I try to really own those spaces that I'm in and sprinkle it in other places. But if you pick the media that you want to be in, like own it, like really go own those platforms.
So own that platform versus trying to just be everything to everybody. Is that your advice?
Yeah. Like pick 3 to 5 that you're like, okay, we can manage these, and then own those 3 to 5 that you can be consistent on.
Gotcha. That's great. So I want to talk about the Kolbe.
Yes.
Okay. I want to dig into that right now. So will you give our guests, or not our guests, but our listeners, an idea about the platform, the approach, the idea behind it, and then we're going to dig into a few more of those questions.
Absolutely. So it's a really powerful tool, and it's not to be confused with a lot of assessments out there, because a lot of assessments fall into either personality type assessments,
DISC assessments,
or cognitive assessments, and they're really good. But if you consider that there are 3 different parts of the way our mind operates, there are 3. We're only we really only know and experience 2 that's talked about a lot, which is the cognitive, how you think, how you process, what you know, your knowledge, your skills. And then the affect, which is, again, that personality, your emotional intelligence, your feelings, your desires, your motivations. Those are things that we are familiar with. But there's a third part of that mind, and it's called the conative mind. It's conation. And that's how you're wired to instinctively problem solve, strive, and decision make.
Okay.
So that part of the mind is housed in the prefrontal cortex, that executive functioning of the mind, with the, I'll say alongside the cognitive. So a lot of people confuse it for cognitive, but there's a very specific function of that conative mind. So you can think, cognitive, you can feel, affective, but how are you actually going to do? How are you going to execute? That's that conative part of the mind, the execution. And Kolbe is the only assessment that purely measures that execution part of the mind.
Okay, so does it give you a plan to execute, or is it just really tell you?
It tells you how
what
you're
level
naturally wired to.
that you're naturally wired to level and that. Okay,
yes.
Great. So then you can identify where you might have challenges. You might identify where you're really good at executing, because it's interesting. I'm reading a really good book right now. It's called The 4 Disciplines of Execution. And the theme of the book is this. Listen, a lot of people love to tell you what to do, but they never really tell you how to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think that's what you're talking about, the execution here.
The actual how to do things, which is wired into your brain, wired into your DNA. And so we measure it in 4 different modes. We call them action modes. It's how you interact with information, how again, you look at systems, processes, like how you interact with those systems and processes, how you take risks, uncertainty, and changes, and then how do you interact with your 3D environment. So those are the 4 different things that we're measuring in Kolbe. And when you look at how you gather information or share information, we look at everything on a continuum from 1 to 10. So we go from simplifying information all the way to getting really specific and specifying. So do you know people who need to have all the details before they do anything?
Yeah.
Right? And then there are people who,
are emotional, get emotional, right?
Well,
on a decision, but
they just need 2 pieces of information and they're gone, right? They're just like, okay, let's go. They don't need a lot of the details. They just give them the bullet points and they're ready to go. So it really helps us identify, because especially when you're hiring people, and that's one of the services that we really like to use Kolbe for, is when you're hiring team members and you're hiring someone to come into your organization. They could sit there in an interview and tell you all the great things that they think they can do for you. They can tell you how they feel about your environment. And yes, I will fit into your culture and all these things. And you can feel really good about that interview. But then you don't really know that missing piece is, how are they actually going to do the job that we're hiring them to do? Are they wired to take the actions that we need them to take in this role? And I'll give you a quick example of that if we have time. But
please
I
go.
had this client, and they kept hiring the same people in this particular VP role over and over again. And in about 6 months, either they'll be fired or they'll quit. And they came to me and they said, there's something, we're using these other assessments, but there's something missing, because I think we keep hiring the same type of person. And so when we did the assessments with their candidates, 4 candidates, 3 out of the 4 came back with an F rating using the Kolbe Right Fit, and 1 had an A- rating. Now, the one that had the A- did not come through their regular channel of recruitment.
Okay.
It was a recommendation from someone within the company. The other 3 came from their regular channel of recruitment, and they were F rated because all of them, while they passed with the other assessments they used, Kolbe gave them an F because the one thing that they needed them to do was to be more risk taking, and they all were risk averse. And so,
and it was able to identify that, which is great.
Yeah. And that's because they needed them to be in the sales position, a sales role, and sales can be risky depending on how you look at it. And so it was always coming back that, but we liked them and they interviewed so well and everything else checked the boxes.
Yes. I'll tell you, one of the questions in building organizations that I've built, being a CEO and going through many interview processes through the years, from sales professionals to executive leaders, one of the questions I always ask at kind of at one point later in the interview, depending on which one it is, but I always ask, listen, if we hired you and I'm gone, okay, I go on a trip for 90 days. How are you going to execute in the first 90 days? Tell me your plan. And that was always a good question for me, because it gave me an idea of not, what they were going to do, but how they were going to do it. And obviously yours is, what you're talking about is a heck of a lot more elaborate and more detailed. But if you're a business owner, yeah, I know. But what I'm saying is, an idea is to get them thinking about how they're going to execute versus just coming in and getting the job.
Around and waiting for someone to tell me what to do, right?
Yeah. So I thought that was important.
When you use something that's validated for hiring like that, like a Kolbe assessment, what happens is legally you are now, it kind of absolves you of any biases.
Right.
So like nobody can come back to you and say, well, you just didn't choose me because of XYZ. It's like, no, we didn't choose you because this document here, this is what we use to make the final decisions. And
it's
now
qualified.
You have a qualified, you have a certified, you have a validated, documented reason. And it's no longer, nobody can come back to you for
that's such a great point. Yeah, we got to get back to that. We got to get back to the qualified person who can do the job and is the best fit. And what you're talking about really adds a much, much needed extra layer. So I encourage anybody out there who's a business owner listening to this right now, okay, reach out to Alicia, okay? Reach out to her, because this is real deal stuff.
Yeah, hiring is a challenge. Let's help you smooth that out.
Yeah. I mean, it really is. So that was fantastic discussion. And you also talked about, I wrote this down because you talked about people or professionals dealing in the 3D environment. Can you explain that a little bit, and also the importance of it? Now, I understand, but I want to make sure that our listeners understand that when you say the 3D environment, it sounds so technical, but realistically, give
it's your space. It's your how do you operate within your space. So with the Kolbe method, it's when we look at that spectrum, that continuum, you can either be envisioning solutions, so you don't need something physical, tangible to know that it's going to work. So I like to look at it as an architect versus a builder, right? So the architect envisions what this can look like and can draw it out, but they don't have to actually have a physical model to see it working. So we look from envisioning to demonstrating. So how are you in that physical environment? Are you someone that really needs hands-on, face-to-face, to experience your environment when you're at work, which means that being in a cubicle might not be the best environment for you to be productive. You might need more space. You might need to walk around a lot. You might need to see outdoors, versus someone who's okay with a small confined space and they can just work within there because they use more of their imagination. to accomplish what they need. So
Great.
that's also really important when you're designing or setting out your office spaces, to know what people's how people are wired for their environment, to really get the best productivity out of them.
Yeah.
Not like you're pulling it out of them, but like they're inspired more to work
Yep.
in an
Yeah.
environment that aligns with how they best operate.
I think it's a great point you make. And it's true, and it's sometimes just becoming aware of that, right?
Yeah.
I think that's the first step, is just being intentional about it and being aware of it, because we're all humans. And I think it's an important point.
Yeah. Because
So,
just one other thing on the 3D
yeah,
space is that you might have someone, and even in a classroom, a kid that needs to get up all the time and walk around, or they're always fidgeting, and you think it's ADHD, or you think that just sit down, just be still. But they have this need for movement. They have this need to touch and feel and walk around spaces. So like, you might be in a meeting for 2 hours and they need to get up. They can't just sit there for 2 hours, and you're fighting against that with them. So when you understand that and you really know that and you can honor that, they feel seen, heard, and appreciated more in the work environment.
Yeah. And I think schools are going to have to figure that out too.
Yeah.
Not to go off topic here.
Right.
Yeah. But sitting them in a school for 8 hours a day, like we learned, it's just not. It's going to have to change.
Not the best for everyone.
Yeah. Not the best for everyone. Yep. Yeah. It's going to have to change when they identify it, for sure. All right. Listen, let's switch gears again. I want to go into leadership and influence and running organizations, but I know you just don't build brands, but you also help build teams, especially with some of the stuff you're doing here. What are some of the biggest challenges leaders are facing outside of, a great interview process and adding to that, which you talked about, but developing in high performing teams, or just great not leadership, but really good culture in a high performing team, or developing a high performing team with a good culture?
So one of the mistakes that I see happening, and it's easily rectified, is that they use these assessment tools in the hiring process, but then they don't allow it to infiltrate the rest of the organization. So yes, we've used the Kolbe to hire, and it's great, and it's wonderful, and you've gotten the best person for the role now. But then you put them in a situation that you just have amnesia and completely forget why this person was so great for the role. And now you're imposing your way to have them do that role. And then when they're not productive, or they're not getting the results that you want them to get, now you're like, in an evaluation, you're like, well, what happened? And you did not give them the freedom to actually be themselves in that role, to make decisions, to problem solve, and to strive based on their natural instincts and who they are, regardless of whatever. I'm talking about Kolbe, but whichever assessment tool you use, it's a mistake not to bring it into the rest of the organization. Because I'll tell you this, when you're working in teams, my strengths may not be the same as your strengths. In fact, my strengths may be in opposition, in conflict to someone else on the team. And if you don't understand that, you're always going to have an HR problem with these two people. And then you're always going to say, figure it out, figure it out, figure it out. And it's not that they're affectively, it's not that their personalities are clashing. It's that their instinctive strengths are natural oppositions, and they need to understand how to work those things together. How do you work those two strengths together? So I talked about the continuum. So if someone is in that reacting mode at the top of the continuum, at the 1 to 3 level and someone is in that initiating part, way down in the 7 to 10, they're natural opposites. And so the way I want to accomplish something will be in direct conflict to the way you want to accomplish that same thing, because we're coming at that, solving that problem from two different perspectives. And if you don't understand that as a leader, then you don't know how to navigate that successfully. And you're always going to have that conflict, or someone's just going to disengage and just say, you know what, do whatever you want.
Yeah, right. And they're going to shut down.
And they're
going to shut down too.
That kills productivity. And if you understand how to, or the nuances of that is a rocket ship. That could be rocket fuel for productivity. Because now you understand how to take this action and actually put them in harmony together.
Yeah, it's great, because and that's where you have to take these assessments to the next level. If you're hiring somebody, whether it's whether it's a Kolbe system or whether it's something, you've got to, because you only have so much time in the interview process, right? Let's be honest.
Right.
You're speed dating.
Correct.
There's however long, even if you take 3 months in the process and you're coming in with people, interviewing a bunch of different, you're trying to figure this thing out. You have to leverage those sort of platforms to really dig in. And listen, I'm not going to say they're always. I remember I had an employee who was just like, she was like a high performer, like off the rails sometimes, like high performer. And she did one of these assessments, and it came back and it said that she was slow and systematic, and which is totally not her. And obviously, it was. I wasn't a big fan of that. I'm not going to mention the name of this assessment, but I was like, well, let me tell you something. She is not slow, systematic. And we were doing it to have her take so we could identify more people like her. Mm-hmm. So you definitely have to take different avenues. It's a big decision because you just don't want to waste time as an organization.
Yeah, and especially now with so much competition and so difficult to find really great talent that's going to stay with you. These are the things that will give you an edge in business, because like I said before, people feel seen, heard, and appreciated when you understand those needs that they have, those conative needs. Because I look at conation as like a foundation of everything. And then you layer on top the personality and the cognitive. But when someone really understands that foundational piece, it really it streamlines everything else.
Yeah, it really does. So listen, organizational alignment. I use that term a lot when building organizations, working, and I work more streamlined with sales organizations and their sales arm. But there has to be, an organizational alignment in that division, this division, that division. As leaders, listen, you understand branding, you understand how to put this all together. What could you recommend for a leader trying to get a stronger organizational alignment for their business? I mean, are there some things they could do, maybe two things that you would recommend? Obviously, making good hires is one of them, and being very intentional about that. But are there any other things you would recommend?
Well, of course, I'm going to recommend that they all take a Kolbe assessment.
For sure.
Because the first thing is understand who's on your team. You have to understand who's in the building, who is showing up every day for you, and are they aligned to the work that they're doing? So we have these different assessments: Kolbe A, Kolbe B, and Kolbe C. The Kolbe A is who that person is. A Kolbe B is them letting us know what their perception of the job they have to do every day. And then the Kolbe C is the supervisor sharing what their perception of that person's role is. And that will create alignment, because if the Kolbe A and B are misaligned, that means that person is doing something against who they naturally are every day, and it's creating strain for them in their brain. So that's a form of stress that can create burnout. If the supervisor thinks they should be doing something that is not in alignment with their B, then there's role confusion. And if the supervisor is telling them to do something that is not in alignment with who they are, then that's causing tension between them and the supervisor, and that can cause conflict. So we could let's first get everything aligned. Let's look at the roles. Let's make sure people are in the right seats on the bus, right? Like,
Yes. There you go. Yep.
and that's what I would recommend. Like, really go through, because sometimes people are in the wrong roles. They're really good, but if you make a little tweak to either the job they're doing or move them over on this side here, you'll see so much better performance, so much better results. But that system of alignment is like second to none.
Yeah. Even just standard operating procedures, SOPs are just like the first step of this. So I thought that's really great information. Wow. Lots to unpack today for everybody out there, huh? I told you it's going to be a great conversation. Is it going to be a great conversation? I knew
talking about PI, but that's a whole other conversation.
We might have to do that in a second podcast, right? For sure. Listen, before I let you go, one, this has been a great conversation. I think this is extremely helpful. Obviously, we're going to put your website up here, contact information. Where can they find you? Because I know there's going to be some people that are going to want to reach out to you and talk a little bit more about this.
Absolutely.
And I think this was a perfect platform and the perfect conversation just to open up and get business owners, get people thinking about, one, how to put yourself out there from a brand standpoint, and two, how to start building stronger organizations and really aligning your team conceptually and intentionally versus just making a hire and trying to, because listen, businesses grow. You got a whirlwind here of things that happen all day, right? They just move and they move and they move. But the people that you hire and help you run the organization are really the cornerstone of what's going to help you grow.
And it's the most expensive line item on your budget. So you got to get that right.
You got to get it right.
And one of the things that we're doing on the branding side is really helping leaders. So you say you want to build your brand, get more visibility on podcasts. So if you want to be, like me, a guest on more podcasts, and you want to know how to, what's that secret sauce to being a great guest, we're working with leaders on that too. So we did talk about the branding and visibility side. Just want to throw that out there.
Yeah. And you all are a brand. I promise you this. I say this, you are all a brand, whether you work for an organization that doesn't define you, are all a brand within an organization. So I encourage you to reach out to Alicia. Yes, it can. Yeah, right. Transparency, connection, trust, the whole thing. I mean, that's what this is all about. So Alicia, I want to thank you for being on the show. What's next for you? I mean, obviously you're doing what you're doing, but what are you doing next?
For inviting me to be a guest on the show. I love it. Again, next we are really working on visibility strategies with our clients, those leaders that want to, like you said, build a stronger brand for themselves, get more visibility for themselves in their organization. That's one of the things that we're working on. So join us. And I would love to have people check out our redcarpetceo.com site. That is our digital media site where we have our podcasts and our web shows and all the things that
put that up there. Red Carpet CEO doc. Put that up there right now. We're going to get that up there too.
Yeah, so redcarpetceo.com. So
excellent.
So in addition to Audacious Concepts, we have Red Carpet CEO, so you can be a part of that as well.
Fantastic. Well, again, thank you for being a guest on the show. I know our listeners are going to get a lot out of this. Everybody, I've been saying this lately, but share this show. Listen, I know there's somebody who can be impacted by this, so just share it with one person. We appreciate all your support. We've got such great momentum with the show, and I always say it's because guests like yourself, I really appreciate you being here. And for all of you out there, wealth, health, success, and as always, go get a win today. I don't care how small it is, how big it is, go get a darn win, and we will see you next time. Appreciate it, Alicia.
Thank you.
Unfinished Business Podcast Show with your host, David Slyman.